So imagine waking up to find out your organization just lost $77 million.
Right, which is just a staggering number to even process.
Yeah, but here's the crazy part. The attackers, they didn't crack a single password. They didn't, bypass a firewall or write any traditional malware at all.
Not a single line.
Exactly. Instead, they literally just mathematically tricked an AI facial recognition system into basically opening the front door for them.
Yeah, and that is actually a documented real-world case study. It's straight out of the Einery Atlas framework involving a foreign tax authority.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it perfectly illustrates this terrifying reality of modern cyber warfare. The old deterministic rules, where a system just reads a signature and blocks a malicious packet. That's completely obsolete now.
It's wild. We really have crossed the threshold into this era of probabilistic machine speed warfare. So welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to, well, map out this rapidly shifting and honestly terrifying battleground of AI cybersecurity.
It is a totally different landscape out there.
It really is. And we've got a massive stack of sources today to help us do that. We're pulling from a YouTube masterclass transcript on the CompTIA SecAI Plus certification, a deep academic review of LLM poisoning from Old Dominion University, and the new MIT AI risk repository.
And we also have the IRI Atlas framework in there.
Right, plus some great industry guides from Sentinelone and Endor Labs on defense in depth, a fascinating paper on human-centered AI, and even some testing data from the Pocket Prep IT app.
It's a lot of ground to cover, but if you're out there, managing an enterprise network, studying for a certification, or just insanely curious about how hackers are targeting systems like ChatGPT, this deep dive is basically your ultimate survival guide.
Okay, let's unpack this paradigm shift, because
Huh?
if traditional security is, a medieval fortress with a moat, AI security is like trying to secure a living, breathing ecosystem.
That's a great way to look at it, because with traditional cybersecurity, you're dealing with deterministic logic. It's binary.
Like if X happens, execute Y.
Exactly. The CompTIA SecAI Plus source uses this great analogy. Rule-based security is basically a bouncer with a strict VIP list. Your ID, your digital signature, has to match the list exactly, or you don't get in.
Okay, so then what is the AI equivalent?
Well, modern deep learning is more like a highly trained detective trying to spot a fake ID just by, noticing how much the person is sweating.
Oh, wow. That's a huge difference.
Right. It's classifying raw byte streams without any manual human feature engineering. Doesn't read words or code the way we do. It does math to understand meaning.
So wait, if the AI is constantly learning and shifting based on math, how do defenders even know what normal looks like anymore?
Well, they often don't, which is the problem. These systems use embeddings, like in RAG systems, to plot concepts in a high-dimensional vector space. And that leads to this huge issue called concept drift.
Right, concept drift. So the model actually degrades over time.
Yeah, precisely. The baseline shifts. So a phishing model trained in January is looking for last season's fashion by July. Attackers change their tactics, and the AI's internal math just gets completely outdated.
So the model might start throwing false positives or just missing attacks entirely, not because the code broke, but because the real world shifted out from under it.
Exactly. It's a probabilistic ecosystem now.
Yeah.
And because of that, the threats against it are totally unprecedented.
Which means we basically need to map out a totally new Wild West of risks, right? And that brings us to the MIT AI Risk Repository. Launched in 2024, they basically synthesized 74 different frameworks to map out over 1,700 unique risks.
Yeah, and the stats they pulled are honestly shocking. Like 65% of the risks they identified happen post-deployment.
Wait, so the danger isn't just when you're building or training the AI?
No, not at all. It happens dynamically in the live environment. And even crazier, 51% of these risks originate from the AI systems themselves, not from a human doing something malicious.
Okay, I have to push back a little here, though. A database of 1,700 risks sounds like exactly the kind of information overload that just paralyzes an organization. I mean, if I'm a security officer, how do I actually use a list that massive without just throwing my hands up and giving up?
What's fascinating here is that the MIT researchers completely anticipated that problem. They didn't just dump a list. They structured it using a causal taxonomy.
Meaning they categorized it by like who, why, and when.
Exactly. So organizations can filter these risks. You can isolate, say, unintentional risks versus intentional attacks, which helps you actually prioritize where your mitigation budget goes instead of just, drowning in a massive spreadsheet.
That makes a lot of sense, especially since the MIT research pointed out that the average security framework only covers about 34% of these subdomains.
Yeah, they max out at around 70%.
Right, leaving these huge blind spots, especially when you get into socioeconomic and environmental impacts, which is why having MITRE Atlas as this sort of Rosetta Stone for AI tactics and techniques is so critical right now.
Definitely. And ADKLA even integrates with things like Caldera Arsenal plugins, so red teams can actively emulate these probabilistic threats.
So we know these massive databases exist to map the threats, but here's where it gets really interesting. We need to zoom in on the specific insidious tactics attackers are actually using on the ground, especially when they target LLMs.
Oh, absolutely. The Old Dominion University Review breaks this down brilliantly. You really have to distinguish between data poisoning and model poisoning.
Okay, so let's use a baking analogy for this. Data poisoning is like sneaking into the kitchen and messing with the ingredients before they're mixed, right?
Spot on. You're compromising the training data set. Model poisoning, though, is much worse. That's like breaking in and physically rewiring the oven itself, so it always burns the cake no matter what ingredients you use.
Oh man, you're altering the internal weights and algorithms during training.
Right. And there's this study from Solly and his colleagues that found you only need about 250 poison documents to reliably put a backdoor into a 13 billion parameter model.
Wait, really? 250 documents? That's what, less than 0.0002% of the training data?
Yeah, it's a microscopic drop in the bucket.
But hold on, if larger models have billions of parameters, shouldn't they be, more resilient to just a few bad data points? Why does size actually make them more vulnerable to this kind of corruption?
It's because massive models have the capacity to memorize highly obscure specific edge cases. A smaller model might just write off those 250 documents as statistical noise, but a large model remembers them, and that allows for stealthy, clean label attacks.
Clean label attacks. That's where the data looks perfectly normal to human reviewers, but it has this invisible mathematical trigger hidden inside it.
Exactly. Nicholas Carlini's research showed how attackers are doing this at a web scale. They'll literally purchase expired domain names that they know are already indexed in an AI's training set and just park this poisoned clean label data there.
Wow. Or they'll edit a Wikipedia page right before a web crawler grabs a snapshot.
Yeah, they just slip it in for a few minutes. And once the model is deployed, we run into the nightmare of prompt injection. The CompTIA material calls it a Jedi mind trick.
A Jedi mind trick, I love that. Because unlike a traditional SQL database where you have a strict barrier between the control plane and the data plane, LLMs just process everything as one flat sequence of text, right?
You nailed it. There's no hard boundary that says, hey, stop taking instructions here and just treat the rest as data. So the attacker just structures their prompt to mathematically hijack the AI's attention mechanism.
Which leads to things like model inversion. That's where the attacker extracts sensitive original training data, like someone's medical records, right out of the live model.
Yeah, they query the model over and over, using the confidence scores to basically navigate the vector space.
Yeah.
It's mathematically extracting the data. And if you have a self-adapting model, an AI that retrains itself on its own generated data.
Why you get a recursive poisoning loop? It unwitting retrains on its own corrupted synthetic data.
Exactly. Total collapse of the system.
So we've got poison ingredients, Jedi mind tricks, and recursive loops. If traditional firewalls can't stop this, how do we actually build a fortress here?
This is where we look at the guides from Sentinel-Own and Endor Labs. You have to use a defense-in-depth strategy. It takes 5 coordinated layers: endpoint, identity, network, cloud, and threat detection.
And for AI specifically, that means setting up guardrails. But we're not just talking about asking the AI nicely to behave, right?
No. A guardrail here is a hard architectural layer. It sits entirely outside the core language model. It's like a bouncer that evaluates the intent of a prompt before the LLM even sees it.
Plus data loss prevention, or DLP, to scrub out personal information before it ends up in the logs. And I know the guides stress that you need token-based rate limiting because traditional IT-based limiting is just totally useless against an AI botnet.
Yeah, you have to track the authentication token itself, regardless of how many IP addresses they bounce through.
Okay, it sounds great to have all these tools, but doesn't stacking 15 different security products just create a nightmare of overlapping alarms for the poor IT team? Like, how do they even know what's real?
Tool sprawl is absolutely the enemy here. Alert fatigue is a massive problem. Traditional software composition analysis, or SEA tools, they'll flag every single CVE they find.
Right, every known vulnerability.
But the Andor Labs research shows that up to 95% of those flagged vulnerabilities are actually unreachable. They sit in dead code paths. The application never even calls that specific vulnerable function.
95%. So the security team is running around putting out fires that don't actually exist.
Exactly. Which is why you need reachability analysis, like what Andor Labs does with their AURI system. It analyzes the actual call graph to see if user input can even reach the vulnerability. If it can't, it suppresses the alert.
That is brilliant. And you combine that with unified platforms like Sentinel, Singularity, and Storyline, which stitch all this telemetry together. So instead of 50 different alerts, the analyst gets one chronological narrative. It separates the signal from the noise, reducing alerts by up to 88%.
Which is huge.
It really is. But, we've talked about the math, the threats, the software defenses. But technology alone isn't enough, is it?
Not at all.
We have to fix the foundational philosophy of how humans and machines interact. Which brings us to the paper on human-centered AI, or HCAI.
Yeah, this paper is crucial. It completely dismantles this 50-year-old dogma called the one-dimensional myth. For decades, we assumed that if you increase computer automation, you automatically have to decrease human control.
Like a sliding scale.
Right, but HCAI replaces that with a two-dimensional matrix. The goal is actually the upper right quadrant, high automation AD, high human control. That's how you get systems that are reliable, safe, and trustworthy, or RST.
Because the gray zones are where disasters happen, like excessive automation with low human control. That gave us the Boeing 737 MAX tragedy, or Tesla autopilots that encourage humans to stop paying attention.
Exactly. But on the flip side, excessive human control with low automation is dangerous too, because humans get tired and make mistakes.
Right, which is why we use software interlocks. Like, my industrial oven lets me control the temperature completely, but an interlock stops me from opening the door when it's at 600 degrees.
Yes. And to design AI like that, you use the Prometheus principles. Continuous visual displays, rapid reversible actions, and informative feedback. The paper uses the best analogy for this: a patient-controlled analgesia device in a hospital.
Oh, the pain med dispensers.
Right. A basic IV drip is low human, low auto. A fully automated dispenser is high auto, low human. But a smart PCA device, the patient holds a trigger, so they have high human control to manage their own pain.
But the machine uses sensors and interlocks to monitor their vitals, preventing an overdose. High automation backing up high human intent.
Exactly. It's the ultimate RST design.
So what does this all mean for cybersecurity? I mean, if we are aiming for high human control, doesn't that inherently slow things down? In a cyber firefight where attacks happen in milliseconds, can we actually afford to keep humans in the loop?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, well-designed automation doesn't slow humans down, it empowers them.
How so?
The machine handles the microsecond containment like dropping malicious packets instantly. But it simultaneously builds that visual storyline we talked about.
Yeah.
So the human isn't writing firewall rules. They're looking at the clear picture to make macro-strategic decisions.
I see. So it's about elevating the human to the role of a strategist, not replacing them entirely.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take a breath and recap this incredible journey. We started by looking at how security has shifted from deterministic rules to probabilistic AI ecosystems. We looked at the terrifying realities of data poisoning and Jedi mind trick prompt injections.
And we talked about how to actually defend against that, using reachability analysis, defense in depth, and of course, human-centered AI.
Right. And just a quick note, if you are studying to test your mettle on these exact concepts, definitely check out tools like the Pocket Prep app. They have thousands of practice questions for the SecAI Plus exam that cover this specific stuff.
It's a great resource. But, there was one final thought I want to leave everyone with, pulling from the CompTIA transcript.
Oh, what's that?
Well, as these AI systems begin automatically threat modeling, deploying their own patches, and responding to AI-generated attacks in real time, are we approaching a future where cybersecurity is entirely a machine versus machine war?
Wow.
And if humans are completely left out of that microsecond loop, who is ultimately responsible both legally and morally when the defensive machine inevitably makes the wrong call?
That is a chilling thought to end on. If the machine takes down a hospital network by accident while trying to defend it, who goes to jail? We are definitely entering a wild new frontier. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems, keep learning, and as always, stay secure.